Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Tini Adebayo. As you know, on this channel, I like to discuss immigration, lifestyle, tech, and all the good stuff. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about getting your first job as a new immigrant in Canada. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people must have mentioned at some point in time that coming to Canada as a new immigrant, getting a new job can be a challenge, and actually that is very true, absolutely true. As a new immigrant, you're coming into a new country, you've had your own experience from a different country. It can be a little bit challenging trying to integrate, and I'm pretty sure at some point some of your friends or family might have told you that when you're coming to Canada, getting a job, you probably need to first start with a survival job, as we call it here. And a survival job could be series of jobs, which are the kind of jobs that you necessarily don't need to have much experience for you to start such jobs. But in today's video, I'm going to be taking you through a series of steps. It's like 5 basic steps, which I think is going to help a new immigrant to actually secure that dream job of yours when you get to Canada. And trust me, for me, when people say, oh, you cannot get your dream job when you first land in Canada, for me, I really don't believe that. If you have the means, if you have the finance, and you can persevere, I'll tell you that yes, you can actually get your dream job. But if you know that your financial situation probably cannot sustain you for a certain period of time, trust me, by all means, you probably should get a survival job. And also, this is just a disclaimer, and I'm not going to tell you that this series of steps that I'm going to give you 100% is going to work for you. It might work for A and not work for B, but these steps are basically some of the steps that I took personally. I'm telling you this based off personal experiences, and trust me rather, these steps are really steps that are going to help you in getting your job when you land in Canada as a new immigrant, irrespective of the country that you're from. The first step that you need to do, one of the very important things that you actually need to do when you land in Canada is, before you start applying, right, you need to do a CV rewrite. Now, when I say CV rewrite, obviously you probably have a very good CV, standard CV. Your CV might have worked in your own country, right? But here in Canada, the way the CV works is a bit different, right? For instance, I'm from Nigeria, and my CVs that I've used back in Nigeria, I've used it to get a lot of jobs, right? But when I got to Canada, I discovered that I needed to actually write my CV, and I actually needed to write every CV for every job that I'm applying for, right? I have to edit my CV each time I'm applying for a job. Back home, I just pick my CV, one CV that I have, and I just shoot it out, right? I don't change anything. I don't change the job descriptions. My job descriptions remain the same. I just shoot it out. But now, when you're in Canada, the way Canada system works is that before your CV even gets to probably an human, right, it goes through the system, right? And the system is probably just set in automatic, searching for certain keywords. So essentially, when you're trying to apply for a job and you have a certain CV that has your own keywords, which has always been working for you, it necessarily might not work for that new job that you're trying to secure, right? So essentially, you need to check the job description of every job that you're trying to apply for, right? Look at the key points, that is what they're actually looking for, the skills they want you to have, the experiences they want you to have, and then rewrite your CV to suit that particular job that you're applying for. This way, when you are able to do that, you probably will skip through that system phase and then get to an human phase. And usually, when you get to an human phase, it's probably HR calling you in the first time to check up on you and then just ask you a few questions. So my first advice is rewrite your CV. Aside the job descriptions, Canadian CVs usually like you to have like an highlight on your CV, just like an highlight of the things that you've done, your achievements, right? Just under your name, where you have your name and your contact details, just immediately after that, Canadian CVs usually have like you to have an highlight. Because trust me, a lot of HR people that actually go through your CVs, they don't have the time to even go through all the experiences that you've had, all the jobs that you've worked in. Most of them don't go through these things. A lot of them, when you actually get to the interview, you notice that this is when they actually tell you that, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just going through your CV, right? So a lot of times they try to look at just the highlights, try to look at it, that does it actually fit what we're looking for, right? And then if you've listed most of these things, that is what they're actually looking for, you probably get a chance, right, to get that job. I mean, get that interview. Now, when you've passed the CV right face, when you have a good CV, because trust me, when you don't have a good CV, you just keep sending your CVs in and then you notice that nobody calls you for an interview, right? But when you have a good CV and then you get called for an interview, right? Now, the next step, also in terms of your application, right, is here in Canada, there's a lot of specifications in terms of jobs, right? Back in my home country, if you, for instance, I'm a digital marketer. When I got to Canada, I've been in marketing for over 9 years. And when I got to Canada, as a digital marketing expert back home, I could do everything, right? Email marketing, social media campaigns, digital advertising, mention it, right? Now, in Canada, a lot of times they break these things down. You actually probably will not see digital marketing applications. You would see these things broken down into, oh, they are looking for an email marketing specialist, they are looking for a social media advertiser, right? And then they break all these things down. So you need to probably look at your experience, look at that job on its own, and where are you good at. You can pick 2 or 3 parts that you're good at. I'm only using digital marketing as an example, right? It could be in accounting, it could be in engineering. Engineering probably will be a different case, right? But I'm just saying that in most scenarios, for instance, a data analyst, right? They may be looking for somebody that is probably a specialist in just data visualization, right? They may be looking for somebody that's actually just good in exploratory data analysis, right? So you need to actually look for specifications, try to search online, look for how those jobs appear most of the time. Do these jobs actually come as a whole and just say, oh, I'm just looking for a digital marketing expert, or oh, I'm looking for an email marketing specialist, or I'm looking for... Trust me, you don't have to wait until you see that post that says, oh, digital marketing expert. You can actually apply for those that actually are like subcategories of the main job itself, and then you start from there. Now, that on its own is something that you need to do. That's my number 2 advice for you in securing your first job in Canada. Now, we go to job search, right? You've done the first step, you've rewritten your CV, now you have a good CV. You've explored, and then now you say, oh, I have some jobs in mind that I want to actually apply for. Now, you need to go online and start applying. And where do you start from? You probably don't know. You probably think, oh, where do I start from? Now, another disclaimer, I'm just going to be mentioning a couple of websites. This video is not sponsored in any way by any of these websites I'm mentioning. I'm only mentioning them based off personal experiences and personal usage. Now, the first website I'm going to mention to you is Indeed. Indeed is very, very popular, and almost everybody knows about Indeed. And one thing I like about Indeed as well is the fact that Indeed gives you the option. It's just similar to the way LinkedIn also works. Indeed gives you the option of actually creating like a profile, like a CV in your profile, right? And then I usually advise people to actually have this. A lot of people probably just apply on Indeed and then just apply, and then their profile is not properly filled. Now, I will advise you to actually fill your Indeed just the same way you do your LinkedIn fill all your details, your profile, your job, your everything. Just fill it there, right? Because I've had experiences and I've heard from people that recruiters have actually contacted people based off their profile on Indeed, right? They actually did not even apply for those jobs. Those recruiters were probably just searching for certain keywords and then you popped up. And then they looked at your CV online and then they liked it. And then they probably call you for an interview, right? Obviously, you would also get a lot of prank calls that are not necessarily in line with what you need, but obviously, if it's not in line with you, you definitely move away from that, right? So I would advise you to check out Indeed, fill all your details on Indeed, and then also ensure that you apply to jobs, right, on a regular basis. Now, the other one I'm going to mention is LinkedIn. For me personally, I preferred using LinkedIn when I'm job searching, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. A lot of times, these jobs are posted directly on the company's LinkedIn page, right? So before these jobs are shared to other job aggregating websites, LinkedIn is the first point of contact, right? For instance, some of these companies actually post directly on Indeed and the other job websites, right? But they probably post on LinkedIn first before they go to those other websites. And then sometimes they don't even post on places like Indeed. Indeed just job aggregates, right? Basically goes to LinkedIn, goes to different websites, the company's website, and then they just pick these jobs and then post on Indeed, right? But for LinkedIn, you know that when these jobs comes out directly from the HR, the first point of call is LinkedIn. So the first set of people that will probably apply are those that are probably following their pages on LinkedIn, and then they get those notifications and then they apply, right? Now, Glassdoor is also a very good job website. Monster.ca is also a very good job website. And then Google Jobs, right? Just go to Google and then just say something like jobs in Canada, right? Or jobs in Toronto, jobs in Ottawa. Basically, you get a list of jobs that are probably near you. Google just aggregates these jobs from different job websites, right? And then it redirects you to job website where you can then apply, right? So there are there are tons of job websites. I'm not going to be mentioning all of them obviously here, but I'm just going to be mentioning those few that I know that I have experience with and have used, right? And with all this website that I mentioned to you, Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Monster, Google Jobs, right? Now, with all these jobs websites that I've mentioned, one of the major things that you also need to do is if you're going to be making use of these job websites, ensure, and I'm going to emphasize on that, ensure that you set up notifications, right? So for instance, you're applying for an accounting job, right? Once you enter that search for accounting jobs, set up a notification for that job. That is that job search keyword. Because I know LinkedIn has this, Glassdoor has this, Indeed has this, right? Almost all these guys actually have this kind of, so and then you get notification based off that keyword, right? So jobs on that notification gets sent to you. And then most of these guys also have that filtering capabilities where you can actually filter, say, accounting jobs in Ontario, accounting jobs in Alberta, and then you get jobs specific to that particular location and that job title. And then you can keep applying to as much as you can. Like, I'm going to say, if you can apply to 5, 10 jobs in a day, apply to them. But one important thing as well is just go back to my number one point, which is ensure that every job that you apply to, there is a keyword. That is, you rewrite your CV specific to that job that you're applying. Now, I'm going to also mention this under this job search and application is ensure that every website that you are and every time that you see a job posting, make sure that you apply immediately, right? Even if you're doing something, right? Probably just quickly set aside 10 to 15 minutes, quickly edit your CV and then apply. Because one thing I've also noticed in the past is that you can actually apply for a job 2, 3 weeks after it has been posted, and then you get that job, right? But one thing that I noticed is you getting that job is probably because they've actually gone through all the people that have applied before you, and then they didn't see a suitable candidate. So if they have seen a suitable candidate, if the first person that they interviewed was a suitable candidate, that job is gone. So one thing that I've noticed is a lot of times, right, you actually get an higher chance when you apply to a job early and then you are amongst those that they first call. You probably might be lucky, you get the job. Now, one important thing as well for LinkedIn that a lot of people would not tell you is, for me personally, I noticed that when I apply early to a job on LinkedIn, probably I'm one of the first 10 to 20 people that apply to the job. I get called for an interview. And then you now killing that interview is not up to you. I'm going to be talking about the interview in another point, right? But right now, I'm still talking about you using this website for your job search. And one thing that I'm also going to say is that if you have the means, subscribe to a LinkedIn Premium. A lot of people will probably not tell you this, maybe because they don't know, but when you are using a LinkedIn Premium, you probably get notifications way faster than those that are using the free account would. And a lot of times, these notifications might even come in the middle of the night. If you are awake, apply to these jobs. And the good thing about when you're using the LinkedIn Premium is that each time someone downloads your CV, that is when you apply to a job and someone downloads your CV, you get that notification that your CV has been downloaded. And obviously, when your CV is downloaded, there is every chance that you probably get called for that interview, as long as you have a good CV, right? And then to an extent, you also see that analytics that shows you where you stand in terms of qualification with the other applicants. So sometimes you see that, or maybe X percentage of people have what's like MBA, X percentage of people have BSc, X percentage of people have college. To an extent, these are not analytics, right? At the end of the day, your interview is what matters, right? Somebody might have an MSc and then you probably just have a bachelor's, right? But you might even still do better than this person because you might even have way more experience than the person that has an MSc. These are just certifications at the end of the day. So maybe along the line, in another video, I could maybe go way in depth into this. Now, another thing about job search is I could also advise you to use agencies. There are actually agencies, and I think one agency that I know of, and I know that I've helped people in the past as well, is Robot Alf. It's a popular agency here in Canada. Basically, when you use agencies, right, you could actually search online, search for agencies around you, right, and then just send them an email. When you use agencies, what agencies do is the agencies would have probably set up a test for you, or maybe set up an interview for you. They would have interviewed you, gauged your level of experience, basically looked at everything, and then maybe if they see that you are a good fit, and then they probably ask you as well, oh, what kind of jobs are you looking for? What is the salary range that you're looking for, right? They ask you all these things, and then they just put you aside. And then when you have clients that they feel you're suitable for that job position, they will push you to that client. Now, when you are going to these clients, the kind of interview that you'll be having may be more of an informal interview because you've already passed that phase through the agency, right? Where they've seen that you are fit for the job, and then they actually you just have like an informal interview, which most of the time, once you already have that pass mark from that agency that you already interviewed with and got tested with, you most likely get the job that they are pushing you for. So I would also advise, if you are able to get hold of agencies in your region, by all means use agencies as well. Now, I mentioned the first one, which is your CVV, right? Having a good CV is very good. Job specification, that is picking the particular jobs that you want, is very good. Job search, having the right websites, setting up the right notifications, and how fast your applications are is also very important. Now, I'm going to go to the interview phase. Now, a lot of people just feel that, oh, don't worry, I'll go for the interview, or I'm very good, I can pass. Sure, you probably have the experience, you probably have everything that it takes to actually get the job. But one thing that a lot of people miss is that the way interview is structured where you're coming from is probably different from the way interviews are structured here in Canada. For those that have worked with multinationals, to an extent, they probably might have an eye edge. Why? Because it's a multinational, the way the interviews are structured may also be similar to the way interviews are structured in Canada. So they may have that experience already with such kind of interviews. Now, for those that are probably not working with multinationals, may not have this kind of experience, and the way interviews are done in your own country may probably be different from the way it's done here in Canada. So I would say be prepared, right? One thing that I personally have noticed with interviews here in Canada is each time that you're talking about your experience, you probably have a very wide range of experience, maybe even more experience than someone who has been in Canada for years, who studied in Canada, right? But you probably might not get the job because you did not kill that interview. Now, one important thing that I've noticed with interviews here in Canada is, be it the HR that you're talking to or the hiring manager, they like examples, right? Always ensure that each time you're talking about your experience, back it up with an example. If you have an example, right? Ensure that you're able to let them know that, see, I know this thing. I'm not just reading something out of the book for you. If you can back it up with examples, this will probably help you. If you can also go to LinkedIn, for those that have premium accounts, I know that on LinkedIn, there's this interview prep that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of questions that get asked in interviews, right? Of course, some of these questions might not even come up in your interview, right? But one important thing that I know is that don't go to an interview unprepared. Go to an interview well prepared and be ready for most of these answers, because thinking about your answers just off the bat at the interview, a lot of times it affects people, and then you probably end up rambling, and then this probably gives you some kind of very, very low kind of perception about yourself. But when you are going to that interview, you are well prepared, trust me, you probably will just kill that interview and get the job. Now, one of the last things that I'm going to mention, which is my number 5 rule of getting your first job in Canada as a new immigrant, is networking. Networking is very, very important. Now, one important thing in Canada, which they like a lot as recruiters, is networking. They like referrals, right? So for instance, you have a friend working in a particular company that you are applying to. Inform this friend that you're applying to that company. Your friend will probably reach out to the HR and say, oh, I know this person, I've worked with this person before. Now, when you have that referral, it's one foot in, because to an extent, they understand that, oh, for you to be referred, and then this person is our staff, right? This person is probably good enough, and then the way they ask you the questions might not be so formal, might be just kind of informal. Now, I'm also going to say part of networking is joining network groups, right? There are network groups for new immigrants. It might be for your country. It might be for maybe your race, right? It might be for any kind of networking. For instance, I belong to a network called Canadian Black Scientists Network, right? And this is for Black scientists that are new immigrants, not even necessarily new immigrants, right? But just Black scientists generally in Canada. Now, these kind of networks usually have career fairs. They have communication and some kind of agreement with government agencies, private agencies, and then they are trying to work and help the visible minority to get a job. This is part of the equity and diversity drive for the government of Canada, right? Every company, every organization, every government department wants to ensure that the equity and diversity is well supported, right? So some of these guys actually have career fairs where different companies, private organizations, government agencies come, and then they interview members of this network. This can also be a very good way for you to get jobs, right? And then there are also networks that are set up. For instance, in Ottawa, There's a group called World Skills. I think it's in support with IRCC, basically for new immigrants. And then they have different programs for new immigrants. A lot of people have also gotten jobs through this. So I'm definitely not going to knock that out to advise you to say, oh, apply to these networks as well. Join these networks by all means if you can. You actually don't have anything to lose at this point, right? You probably may get a job through the network, you may not get a job through the network. But if you don't get a job through the network, the first 4 steps that I've mentioned earlier in this my video, trust me, these steps would help you in getting a dream job. I'm not promising you that you can get a job with this, but I know that this has worked for me personally, and with my experience and my research, I've seen that this should definitely work for you. Now, I'm just going to reiterate again, just to mention my list as well. CV rewrite, job specification, job search, preparing for your interview, and networking. These 5 steps could save you a lot of time and hassle in getting your first job when you land in Canada. Now, this brings me to this part of the video as well, which is when should you apply, right? A lot of times people will tell you, oh, land in Canada before you start applying and all that. Trust me, I will tell you that the moment you get your co-PR and you know that you'll be coming to Canada very soon, right? Start applying, even from your own country. Start applying, because when you get to Canada, from the point of going for an interview, applying, even the job you're applying to might just be recruiting someone for a role that wants to resume in maybe 2 months, right? So this process might still take 2, 3 months, even 4 months. I've applied to a job before and they told me that, oh, the position is actually for maybe like 3 months time, right? What do you do in this period? You definitely can't just say, oh, I'm going to wait for these guys when you've not gotten an employment letter from them. Trust me, if you don't have an employment letter from any organization that you have interviewed with, do not put all your mind into that organization. Ensure that you get an employment letter before you can relax. If you do not, continue applying until you get that job that gives you an employment letter. So when I say when can you apply, start applying from when you get your co-PR. Trust me, even though you are not in Canada, the fact that you already have a work permit, a PR, right, PNP, whatever you have that allows you to work in Canada, you can actually start applying. You can let your interviewer know that, oh, you have not landed yet, but you have your PR, and because a lot of them will probably even ask you, do you have a PR or a work permit, right? So you can let them know that you have this, and you can let them know that you are landing soon, right? But once they know that you have this, you probably will get it. I've seen people that have gotten jobs before they even landed in Canada. So once they landed in Canada, they started working, right? Some people have even started working before landing in Canada. So trust me, I would advise you, start applying as soon as you have your co-PR, so that you don't have an issue. If you are looking at, oh, address, what address do I put on my CV? You don't necessarily even need to put an address on your CV. But if you need to put an address, you probably have friends and family that are in Canada. Get their address and put on your CV. You're probably going to be landing at a friend's place or a family's place. Get that address put on your CV. If it's in terms of a phone number, you can actually use a friend's phone number or a family's phone number, right? Or you can actually get all these online numbers. You can get Canada numbers online. There's a popular app which is called Numero that you can actually just subscribe, pay maybe I think £5 or €5 for that line for that month, and then you can receive messages, calls on that line, right? So you can actually have that. But a lot of times nobody even calls you on your line. Just very few of them will book a call session with you. Most of them will probably just book a Teams meeting with you. So that's your line there. Probably just there just for having it on your CV. So I'm going to tell you that you can actually start applying as soon as possible. In my next video, I probably will be talking about, maybe if you would like me to talk about it, or at some point in my series of videos, I could actually talk about transitioning into a new job. When you get to Canada, there are a lot of people that are probably in a particular field, but once they land in Canada, they probably like to transition. I have a bit of experience in that as well, and I could actually mention that in one of my series of videos. If you would like me to talk about that as well, or if you would, there are specific topics that you would like me to talk about in terms of lifestyle in Canada, settling as a new immigrant in Canada, right? Immigration processes, just drop this down in the comments below. I'm going to be looking at those comments and looking at those topics, and I'm going to be creating videos about those topics that you are suggesting for me. Thank you for watching this video. If you have not subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe to my channel and also set up notifications so that you can get notified each time I post a new video. Thanks for watching my video again, and have a nice day. Bye.